G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. We're coming to you live on a Friday afternoon talking trade targets. We're talking the big boys and answering your questions. Let's go!
She's done it from nowhere. Hoisted the goal from inside the 10. She from the boundary. Dusty. Round Petty. Petrarca. Oh, wow. How good is that? The legend becomes immortal.
G'day and welcome again to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Casey, and you can find me on Twitter at Ball Boys Fantasy and joined on this Friday afternoon, as always, by Luke Rogerson. How are you, mate?
No beers.
No beers. We're sober Ball Boys this afternoon.
Yeah, listen, guys, the one job that Mitch has to do is just provide the beers for us.
The one job you reckon?
All the I know, I'm really throwing the bait out there. I gotcha. The $57.13 that people have kindly donated to us. That's our beer money. We've got to get some beers for that money.
Yeah. No, we'll definitely have some beers this weekend. I just forgot to get on my way home from this afternoon. So.
I'm baiting Mitch there. He does the whole run sheet. He actually works a job at the moment. I'm sitting at home on my ass and I'm into him about not getting the beers.
You've got an important job as dad at the moment.
I'm telling you, I sit around for 3 hours and then I feed her and then I sit around for another 3 hours. So.
A lot of stuff. But yes, no, sober boys on a Friday afternoon. So maybe we might actually have some good, takes this week. And maybe the Ball Boys, big boys are going big. Who knows?
We're trying something new. No beers. Let's see what happens.
So, sober advice. But fair bit going on this round. Obviously, since we've recorded, we'll dive straight into it. Rory Laird. He's out.
Yeah, that's going to, I don't know the exact percentages, but that's going to spice things up for quite a few coaches.
I think 95% of the top 100, and I want to say something similar in the top 1,000, so extremely popular player. So
looking for the sort of silver lining, I suppose, a few people have been mentioning it out there, but the fact that teams might now become a little less similar to each other, that's kind of a positive. But then the other thing too is I think that this week you've kind of got a few different options in terms of if you just want to go straight across to another Uber Premium in that bracket, you can, but then there's also some guys where you can explore generating
especially in the
cash.
Midfield, and we'll talk through all those options as we go along. The other interesting thing is Mindy, thank you, mate. Those go straight to the beers.
Yeah, thanks, Biddy. Yeah, we need to sort those beers out. We got another donation. Much appreciated, mate. Much appreciated.
Yes. So is The fact that other people might have injured players still on their team from last week, I think if I look at the top 1,000 numbers here, there's still people holding Tom Green. 24% of the top 1,000 still have a Tom Green, who's obviously still out as well.
Yep.
Some people still have an Angus Sheldrick, who you'd be pretty keen to use his cash. So there's a lot of still people out there with multiple injuries and still have a lot of decisions to make. So the Rory Laird out will affect, even though everyone has him, it'll affect teams differently depending on what else you've got going on your side.
I'm going to bring this up a little bit later as well, but what's the go with AFL teams just like holding their cards close to their chest and then come
I don't
team
give a
just
fuck about reporting injuries.
Why do we bother with injury reporting?
Legit, I think the great man Selby tweeted out the other day that there was 6 players that were all injured come teams on a Thursday night. And,
I saw that. Tough week of training.
Yeah, and none of them were reported on the AFL.com.au's bloody injury reporting.
It used to be the old joke, like if it was going to be a tough week at training on the track, the coach would be like, bring your fucking mouth guard, boys. Bring your mouth guard to training. We're going hard. So it must have been some mouth guards at training because people are dropping like flies.
Yeah, but it's, I don't know, classic. It annoys me, but, we've got to just keep our ear close to the ground to sort of see what's coming up. The other one that we are also still monitoring there is Zach Butters. By all reports, it sounds like he's going to get up, but... Yep. A hip injury they're calling it now, not a stiff groin.
Okay, well, I'm glad that
no more stiff groin talk. We can officially call it a hip. I think they call it a hip sprain, which is an interesting area to sprain.
It sounds very similar to the old groin stiffness. Yeah. I'll be honest. They've just given it a different name.
Less severe, I reckon. So I think that's a good sign. That's a good sign.
Positive, very positive.
But let's maybe go over some other things happening from the Thursday night teams. Yes. Just a few little observations that I took from the teams. Some a little bit more subtle than others.
Yeah.
Talking about the Essendon ruck situation. Now,
and most importantly, how does it affect the big man that they're versing this week?
So a lot of people, and I've seen him high on a few other, captain pickers rankings for the captains this week. But if we actually look at the matchups for rucks recently, Essendon rucks are actually still rated one of the hardest rucks in the last 5, even despite Draper not being there.
Okay.
And now with Phillips coming back into the side, they have a few options in their ruck department. So, and a lot of the reason why, because Sam Draper's not a behemoth of a ruckman or anything like that. The reason
He's got a behemoth of a mullet.
He does, yes, just like yourself. But the reason they were a tough matchup is because their strategy for their rucks is for them to basically just run the other ruck as hard as they can and then chuck another ruck in there and do the same thing. So they tire them out, get them from contest to contest.
Hard runner, I will say. If there's
yes.
anyone who can do it, it's him. But you're probably thinking there might be some better VC options this week.
He is. Now, I still think that he is definitely a VC option, but I hesitate to say that, okay, there's no ruck at Essendon and that's why they're a good matchup because Sam Draper's not the best ruckman in the world anyway, and they still were a hard matchup. So that was an interesting one that he's come back into the side, and obviously you still have no one else dropped from Brian, and I think also Peter Wright, who also does a bit of rucking there as well. So they have 3 potential players to play in the ruck there.
Next piece of news you've got written here said no blank for Hawks. Have you forgotten to put this person's name in? Or
no.
You said no blank. Is there meant to be someone's name?
No, blank is the person's name, mate.
Oh, you mean blank like the player, not blank like omitted. Oh, I understand. Yes. Yeah, right. Okay.
Although I think I have misspelt the name there.
So, well, let's talk about, because we don't really care about old Blanky, but we do care about what James Sicily's doing and the role that he's playing in, because we kind of know at this point that if he's forced to play a little more accountable, then it's not necessarily conducive to scoring. The other little thing that I want to say that I have seen out there as well is that there was a certain Tiger named that might have been linked to a little bit of attention for the sick dog. We kind of mentioned this on Monday's show that has sort of North Melbourne maybe thrown a little blueprint out there. The other thing that I want to mention too is I don't know whether Sicily helps his chances when he comes out in the post-game interview of that game and says, I didn't really like the person running around with me. If I'm the other coach, I'm thinking, oh, you didn't like it? Okay. Let's do it. Let's go.
Let's do it.
You know what I mean?
See, it's funny. I was watching that press conference after the game as well, and as someone who was planning on trading him in, I was like, oh yeah, if he gets no tag next week with Richmond, he's going to go nuts. But now I'm a bit hesitant with the blank thing combined with the rumours of Ryan Mansell. He's fallen down my rankings in terms of trade targets, and also the big boys. He was earlier in the week in there. He will not be here today now. But I think that is very interesting, and also Seamus Mitchell coming back in. So you've got sort of another small defender coming into the side with no small defenders coming out of the side with Lloyd Meek and Fergie Green omitted. So, yeah, very interesting. I think that doesn't fill me with confidence in terms of trading in a James Sicily, who I was keen on despite his tag score last week, but now not so much.
I think he's a really interesting just prospect for everyone this week, whether you own him from last week, whether you're looking at trading him in, whether you're staying off him. So I'd be interested, people in the comments, because we've got some very well-credentialed people listening in the comments at the moment. We've got Bindi there, we've got Mini Monks in there, we've got Guesty listening along. So give us a little bit of an opinion there in the comments. What do you guys think of Sicily this week? Is he in your plans?
Because a lot of people jumped on early, and for those who didn't, I now think that it's kind of a wait and see, because the other thing is you're waiting for next week, because we've got the Saints next week. So, like, you kind of want him to you want to have him for that matchup.
Yeah.
But, it's an interesting one.
Man. There's still we say these things, but there's still every chance he goes huge. So
absolutely. The next observation here from teams: Patrick Cripps and Adam Chera out. Still no Kennedy as well in the Carlton midfield. So this affects, I think, a few people. I think a lot of the talk is going to George Hewitt as a cheap option, as a guy who could potentially cover a Rory Laird out this week. But I also want to spend time talking about Sam Doherty.
See what Bindi said?
What did Bindi say?
That's good.
Sicily is nice, but
like that. I'll approve that one.
Very well done. Very well done. You guys have been hanging out too much, I reckon.
I think I'm just going to say that next episode and claim it as my own.
That's your MO, mate.
What do you mean?
There's a little joke here that I'm going to tell later.
But, no. I'm being set up here.
But so I think that we should also talk about Doherty as a potential beneficiary for Patrick Cripps and Chera being out, because who's going to be their midfield this week? You've got Sam Walsh, you've got George Hewitt in there. I think Doherty has every chance to be that third or fourth guy with maybe a... who's the other guy I'm talking about? The tagger.
Yeah, I mean,
Curnow is the guy I'm thinking of. I think they're the 4 guys that are going to be spending the most time in the midfield, right?
I don't think it's the worst take you've ever had. And the other thing, too, is it's a juicy matchup. So,
exactly. West Coast.
Yeah, if we hadn't had the sort of Laird news, I think I'd be looking to bring in Doherty over Sicily this week.
Absolutely.
But now that we've had the Laird thing, I still want to try and get some sort of like benefit from my trades this week, so I'm kind of going elsewhere. We'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah, for sure. So that's an interesting one to keep an eye on. Dunkley is back. Just a small little note there. We'll talk about him later in the trade targets. Darcy Cameron is also back. So straight back in after he's been carted off on the...
I wonder if he re-entered on the golf buggy too.
Wouldn't that be all time? Just like,
I'm back, boys.
Let's go.
I'm back.
We're doing it. Oh, that'd be pretty epic. And also Lloyd and Chad Warner are back. So a few players coming back, and Hayden Young is another one. Sarong as well. So lots of players coming back. Hayden Young's an interesting one because I thought he'd be out longer, but just the 1 week for him after being in a moon boot and saying that he was hopeful to get back for the end of the season.
No golf cart, so he's good to go. You know, I'm a little bit worried for our mate Callum Mills this week, to be fair. I'm a little bit concerned with just...
so Lloyd's back, Warner's back. We thought Dane Rampy, who was supposed to get 2 weeks, avoided suspension.
Yeah. So well done,
Crazy.
whoever was arguing for Sydney there. Very well done.
Very lucky there. But so what does this mean for Callum Mills?
Well, I think there's like a couple of things here. It's maybe positive that you've got Lloyd and Rampy back because maybe it means less time behind the ball, but then Warner coming back in, what does that mean for his like on the ball role? But it's just nothing has filled me with confidence thus far in owning Mills.
The biggest
for the second
concern
time
for me was that last week he had the role.
Yep.
He was in there enough. There was patches of the game where he went completely missing.
But
that's not the Callum Mills that I thought we'd get, when he's playing that role.
Yeah.
And I think the emergence of Errol Goulden as that thirsty kind of guy that's getting all those.
But he's playing on the
+6s.
wing. He's not even playing in.
Yeah, but he's a different breed.
He
as
is.
someone who's watched him very closely as a non-owner for several weeks, it's just I think the Goulden just shaves off that ceiling for Mills, and he's kind of doing all that grunt work inside and not getting the points associated with sort of the outside ball that he might typically get.
I think it's a pretty fair call.
Even if he is in the midfield, I don't see him being the Mills of last year right now.
Yep.
Could change, but on top of that, do you think there's a risk of him going in the back line like we've seen before, or do you think he's still going to be...
We've seen that whenever Horst Longmire wants to stem the tide of the game, it's basically just pointing, Mills, go back, and Mills just goes and sits in a hole, and it's
Melican's out.
It's absolute shit for his scoring, so...
Yeah, Warner's out. I think there is maybe a risk. The Rampy avoiding suspension helps that a lot, I think.
I think to an extent it's kind of a moot point because if you don't own him, you're not trading him in. If you do own him, you're probably not trading him out. You probably want to do something else anyway.
I think you could trade him out, definitely.
With the Laird bullet, I guess if you don't have any other, if your team's complete otherwise, then potentially.
Yeah.
The other thing that we haven't jotted down here that I want to talk to you about is the rumours that potentially Big Shawnee Das could be sent off for surgery.
Yes.
So I read an article.
His season, I think, could be the play.
I read an article that would either be confirmed or denied by early next week. So there's an interesting sort of limbo period here where if people look to trade into Luke Jackson this week and then it comes out early next week that Shawnee Das is going to try and get back, then that kind of sucks. But if Shawnee Das is out the rest of the season, I think there's a very serious case to be made for a DPP ruck forward in Luke Jackson that's going to be the solo ruck.
Absolutely, and he's coming up against Sydney, who are probably one of the easiest matchups for ruckman this week.
Well, this is the discussion point, is like if you don't know if Sean Darcy is confirmed out for the rest of the season until next week, do you pull the trigger early this week on Luke Jackson?
Yeah, I think you could. I think it's a play definitely you could make. I'd be a little bit concerned just because I think there was Luke Jackson was rumoured to be pretty sore even just like a couple of weeks ago or something like that, so... I don't know if he's 100% like fit, firing, and ready to go.
That was part of the article. For what it's worth, they've said he's over that and he's kind of...
All right, well, I don't mind it. I think it's definitely a play. I think
discuss
it still
more
could be an
later as
option next week, though. So I don't think it's like you have to go this week.
Yeah, he's got a break even.
But you might get an instant reward.
Yeah. Break even of like 105. So, like you said, he's not going to escape you.
The last little note here is obviously the Marcus Windhager one for the Saints. He's on that extended bench, and as the traders pointed out, there's some good names on that extended bench.
I was listening to that today.
Just a little bit of potential that he might be either used as a sub or dropped completely. So you've got Gresham, who you think could be in there, Dan Butler, who I'd imagine plays. Then you've got Billings. You'd have to think he's in there. Hunter Clark,
Well,
Stocker. I actually think he's probably dropped.
yeah, I mean, it would be.
We'll find out in 15 minutes.
Yeah,
but,
it'd be pretty rough coming off, the big 100 that he had last week, which saved a lot of coaches. But yeah, stay tuned on that one.
Contrary to popular belief, fantasy AFL coaches don't look at fantasy when they pick their
I'm
teams.
telling you, I reckon they bloody do. I reckon they sort by fantasy.
I definitely would.
Yeah. Now,
All right, let's,
before we tuck into some trade targets, take the quick opportunity to mention the Content Creators Cup. And I particularly want to mention, because I know that Guesty's hiding in the comments there, and there's a big matchup this week at the top of the table.
Woo!
Mitchman's taking on the Gerbils. So it's
Top of the table clash, last round of the regular season.
That's it. It's basically winner is the minor premier.
Minor
so
premiership on the line.
I know Mitch has been telling me all week in private this is going to be an easy matchup. He's going to shit it in. So we'll see. We'll see what Guesty has to say to that in the comments. But remembering that the Content Creators Cup is sort of targeted there at a good cause as well. So Guesty's company, Infinite Wealth, is going to be donating some money to charity at the conclusion of the season, and he's also offering some free sort of financial advice, a financial program you can see there on the screen. infinitewealth.com.au/AFL fantasy is where you can access that for fantasy coaches.
Go and check it out and get yourself educated and earn yourself lots of money. I know it's been a great sort of
money.
Great sort of program that I've gone through that I've really enjoyed. All right.
Beautiful.
Let's talk about some trade targets. We'll kind of just brush through the downgrade targets because I don't think a lot of people are going to be going there this week. But number one, I've got here Cooper Harvey, just based on job security. He's going to keep making cash.
What's he priced?
He's like $250, I want to say.
Oh, it's not as bad as I actually thought.
He is.
Yeah, okay.
So I think he's there. Sam Banks has been there for a couple of weeks. He's still cheap. You can go there. There's a few extended bench guys that could be there that are 200K. Luke Nankervis and James Cheetahs, I think I want to say it is.
Cheetahs, yeah.
I've
heard Cheetahs getting around well.
And I believe there's another 200K player that was named. I think at this stage, if you need to, if there's a 200K player who's named, I'm happy if you're trading them in.
Yeah.
And, just trying to maximize that cash on the ground. So I don't think it's hugely relevant at this point, depending on your other options on the bench and who else you have to cash out in the next few weeks. No,
I'm glad you cleared that up because that was going to be my follow-up question to you. Are we at that point where it is a bit less relevant? And I think I'm sort of at that point with my team, whereas I'm not going to go to a Cooper Harvey if I can get the guy that I really want on the other end by going to the 200K. So with how many weeks we got to go?
6 weeks.
6 weeks to go.
So you've got, you're probably maybe not doing a downgrade this week. So you've got at most, 3 or 4 downgrades left. And I look at my bench. I've got Campbell Chesser there who I can downgrade. I've still got a Windhager there who I can downgrade. I've already got a Cooper Harvey, so he's maybe someone I can make 100K on. So a lot of people will be in a similar boat, so you don't need to go up to those guys if you've got 3 or 4, 3 plus sort of guys on your bench there. It may be just a heartbeat as an emergency sort of thing.
Definitely. Time to go balls deep, guys. Just go for it.
Let's go. All right, so upgrade targets.
So if we're looking in that Uber premium bracket, we start the list at Sam Doherty. I think there's a combination of reasons that we've already touched on. Is we know he's, firstly, an Uber premium. Secondly, he's guaranteed top in his line. And then Sugar. Sugar
now. So, we definitely. I mean, I've said this a few times. You don't judge a trade based on the first week, but we are 6 weeks from the end of the season. We start now having to judge a trade by the first week. So it's all about targeting runs. It's about targeting matchups at this point. So for me, Sam Doherty, if you don't have him, a lot of people did jump on him a couple of weeks ago. But if you don't, I think now is the perfect time to trade him in. I would personally. I don't know if you're feeling different, but I would personally be trading Doherty in over a premium midfielder if you've got the Rory Laird injury, and put a midfielder into your, a defender into your midfield, because I think Sam Doherty could have a big week this week, and next week you can sort of trade that defender out.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, and there's a few midfielders that you might want to just have a little bit more of a look at prior to going and grabbing them. So like a guy like, Caleb Serong is coming off a week. He should be all right, but no problems. Then you got, I know Dunkley most people will eventually have in their forward line, but you want to have a look at him as well. So yeah, I don't mind that.
Number 2, I've got Darcy Parish, who I do really like.
You'd bloody fallen for this guy, I reckon. You didn't hate him at the start of the season.
I've had my eye on him, and I've wanted to get him in. I don't know with a couple of moves I'm going to be making if I will this season, but I'm just eyeing in a few weeks that he has a North Melbourne and a West Coast matchup back to back. So again, in terms of like prioritising matchups for the rest of the season, if you've got 2 out of your 6 remaining games as the easiest 2 teams to score against for mids, he's also had an extremely high floor this season. He's lowly owned inside the top 100 and top 1,000. I think he is, if you're looking for a midfielder, he, to me, is the best like-for-like trade for a Rory Laird, is a Darcy Parish.
And from what we've seen this season as well, there's not going to be any teams that are paying attention to Parish before they do Merritt.
He's going to be left to his own thing. That's exactly what Parish thrives in.
Yeah, Merritt's changed my opinion on him this year, big time.
He's played really well from a footy point of view as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah. And number 3, I have Caleb Sarong there. I like him as a scorer more in isolation, but his run compared to Parish, I think, is a little bit worse. He's not as unique as Parish either because a lot of people did hold him. I think he is down a little bit, maybe at like 35% or something like that in the top 100 and top 1,000. So he is still unique-ish, but not as unique as Parish. And I think the matchup and the run for Sarong is a little bit worse, but he's been so consistent this year. I don't think he could really disappoint you. So I like those top 3 pretty clearly if you're looking at that 900 plus K bracket. And then at number 4, I have Sicily if you're trying to get him in, and fingers crossed he goes well against Richmond. But he was higher on this list before the teams dropped and blank wasn't named.
Yeah.
All the talk about Mansell, so I've dropped him down a little bit.
Yeah, a few question marks, and I think most of the people that sort of commented on that previously did sort of agree with us in saying that there are a few question marks kind of stacking up there with Sicily. So
I was really keen to get him into my team because I really wanted to have him for next week's matchup as well as this week's matchup, but I think now it's sort of like not this week with a few too many question marks.
Yeah, fair enough.
I then have Josh Dunkley. I personally think I don't want to trade him in this week because
Geelong, I think.
Geelong, tough matchup.
150 break even.
Yep, so he's not going to be more expensive next week. And also just soft tissue coming off a calf. It's just a little bit risky.
We're great minds, mate. We're just on the same page.
Yeah, you just reading my notes here and
reading the notes. You didn't even write that, you shithead.
And so I've got him in there. And at number 6, he just kind of snuck into this bracket. Stephen Coniglio. I just think, the Giants actually have a really tough run coming up as well, and he's been traded in a lot over the last few weeks that I think you could maybe go something a bit more unique than a Cogs at this point.
This week, are you sort of preferencing sidewaysing Laird to one of these Uber premiums, or are you preferencing the Laird down to like an LDU, a Steele, these guys, or is it just completely team dependent?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to shout out Mini Monk that it is team dependent because that's his catchphrase, but I think that there are a lot of good value options this week. I do still really like Doherty and Parish probably the most out of those top guys. So if you say, for example, traded some injured players last year, banked a lot of cash, and you can just do a sideways and still improve another underperforming guy up to a better player in another line, without having to go down.
Yep.
I like that. I think I'd probably would do that. If you need a little bit of cash from, a Laird down to one of these other guys we're going to talk about in a second to improve on the other side, then I like that a bit more. For example. So
it is dependent what
it is dependent on what you do, what cash you've got, what other holes you've got to fix in your side. But there are some good options here, I think, highlighted by the number 1 guy, which probably isn't a trade from Laird. But if you don't have English, if you don't have Marshall, I think you almost have to go Max Gawn.
Is Grundy back? I thought Grundy was back.
No, I think he's in the extended bench for the Sunday squad, so he's not back.
Okay.
We'll confirm that at 5 o'clock.
Find out.
But surely not. He can't be actually back after that performance from Max Gawn.
I don't know, I'm reading something. I thought I saw something, but I am prone to just absolutely making something up.
If Grundy is back, then he said in Grundy, but that's Sunday squad. So maybe, I don't know if that's what you saw, but he's in the extended squad. So I don't think we'll see him there. If
Grundy's not there, then Gawn could go on to be the top averaging ruckman from here on in, eh? He's a beast.
Well, I think a few people have pointed out this week, but we haven't seen Gawn as a solo ruck for 3 years. Like, he's been...
That makes me cranky from a fantasy perspective.
I know. Like, this guy has been like a 60% CBA ruckman for the last 3 years, and he's still averaging 100 things. So
100% in the team, I reckon.
Grundy
to play forward.
Magic Cup. We'll scratch everything I said there. If Grundy's back. If Grundy's in, you don't trade him in. But if he's not, then I would definitely go to Gawn. But okay, we'll confirm that in 5 minutes, I guess. But I think that if he's not in, Grundy that is, then Gawn is a slam dunk pick in my opinion.
Okay. Selfishly, I want to talk about this next kind of handful of players. So let's just kind of lump.
Conversation.
They're a little bit sort of differently priced, but let's talk like LDU, Steele, Tuke Miller to a kind of lesser extent.
Yeah.
And the reason I want to talk about it is because obviously, my trade's
I think a lot of people will be deciding between these three.
So layered down to LDU, banks your cash to potentially do something elsewhere.
Yeah.
So is what we've seen from LDU in the last 2 weeks real? Is it real?
I think so.
We thought this was going to be the start of the season.
Validation. Validation.
You can't call it validation. I tweeted LD useless earlier in the year. This is not validation.
Yeah, well, I think after he was that super duper laid out that I was swearing across, across the day when back in round 3 or whatever it was. I think he's been playing hurt those rounds, and he wasn't 100%. He's a gun player.
Yeah.
He fills the categories, the stat categories. Grundy's playing VFL. Well, guys, stop. You're doing my head in here.
Grundy, we'll wait and see.
Yeah. He is definitely... I think he's definitely back. I think this is the real LDU. I think that I've got him number 1 because of the price.
Yep.
Because he's got an amazing run.
He does.
So he's got Saints and then West Coast.
Yeah.
He also is, in my eyes, the clear number 1 guy in the midfield over at North.
Yep.
And so the points, to use some people talk about like market share of point scoring, AFL fantasy points.
Yep.
He's going to be having the majority of it.
The other thing
to
too,
these other two.
You don't have to look back too far to find evidence that he can do it for like a reasonably sustained period.
Yes.
So if you go back to see what he did last year, I'm pretty sure it was kind of like post-buy. Might have been a little bit further on. But post-buy...
And it's on a just as terrible team as well.
Yeah, I think he averaged like 108 post-buy or something like that.
And he had a couple of tag games in there as well.
So there's evidence to show that this guy can do it. The only thing that I would just say that I really didn't like when I was watching earlier in the season was like this kind of like disinterested feel, but I don't know whether that just comes with he was hampered by injury that's now all good. I don't know.
He looked very interested last week, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. You don't score 140 disinterested.
Yeah, he looked very interested. So I personally have him ahead.
Yep.
I think that he's set for a big finish to the year.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that he's not having to share with a few other guys. Where Jack Steele and Tuke Miller, their midfields are actually pretty stacked. We talk about the Saints. Brad Crouch, Jack Steele, Sinclair in there as well.
Yep. Rowan Marshall gets his hand on
Rowan
the
Marshall,
he
gets the ball like they will like it in Desire Mangini Miller's hands as well.
Yep.
There's a bunch of guys there to get a lot of fantasy points. And how many can you have? I'll throw a stat to you that I kind of was a bit shocked by. Jack Steele has only had 30 touches this season once.
He cuddles. When he gets his big scores, he cuddles. So this is what was missing for him in those games. He's obviously playing hampered. He's missing the tackles. So if you're looking at Jack Steele and you're looking at which stat line do you think is indicative of Jack Steele performing at his best?
Yeah.
It's his cuddles, and then you add 5 or 6 marks in there as well.
So here's another thing. Every time that he's gone over 120, he's had 10 plus tackles. So every time he's gone over 100, he's had 10 plus tackles in all bar 2 of them.
So
so you can look at that 2 different ways. Is it realistic to expect him to get 10 plus tackles in a game? Like, is that something that we can bank on?
I don't think it's something we can bank on, but if you look across the league and say that there's a handful of guys that could go on to average...
He's one of them.
Yes. But I don't think it's something you bank on, especially considering he's got a teammate that had like 18 tackles 17, a few weeks ago.
Yeah. So you can look at that 2 different ways. You can look at, he tackles a lot, and if he gets 30 disposals one game, he could have a massive score.
Yeah.
That's true. You could also look at on the flip side that if he has a game where he only has 5 or 6 tackles,
or the game's not contested, gets on the outside,
then he may have a dud score 80 or 90. So you could look at a few different ways. So
the person that you're sort of comparing him to in your mind this week is Tuke Miller. What's I know you're leaning towards Tuke. Give us a little bit of a justification why.
I'm leaning more towards Tuke just because of the uniqueness of him, and a person in my position, I'm just outside the 300 ranked spot. And
steals an octopus. Good call, Mitty Bug. It's just extendo hands. Like, what's that? What's that fucking superhero with the stretchy hands?
Tentacles.
Yeah.
which I've stolen immediately from the
No, don't reference it. That's great gear, Mitch. Did you come up with that yourself?
very original gear right there, mate. But yeah, so no, like we said, if anyone can do it, so Steele. But 2 tackles as well. 2 gloves a tackle. He loves a cuddle.
Yep.
And
Built like a fucking brick shithouse too. He'd love a tackle.
He's still coming back. 69%, I think, CBA time on ground.
Dinner
Then
for 2.
76. Yes.
Yeah,
Shout out to the Rarest Magic boys. And then 76 last week. So I expect him to be sort of like that mid-80s kind of guy. So maybe we'll see another uptick. Again, though, sharing it with like Noah Anderson,
Ned Flanders,
Sam Flanders, and Matty Rao. But the thing that encourages me a little bit, and maybe this is me just talking myself into it, Noah Anderson's actually playing at such a good level right now that perhaps he is now the tag target, leaving Took a little bit more freed up potentially in terms of like opposition just paying a bit more attention to Noah, which in years gone past it was reversed.
Yeah,
So
I think that could
helps.
potentially be a week-to-week thing, and it depends how, like you said, Took kind of progresses for the rest of the year. I think as to where that attention goes. But
the other argument is that the Gold Coast Suns have a tougher run.
Yes, I did hear that this week.
Which is definitely true. I would definitely agree with that Saints have a better run. So if you were a betting man, maybe you would say, you know, Steele probably is more favoured to score more from here on out. But I think if you're in a certain position like myself, taking the gamble and going for a Took Miller is definitely justified. Yeah,
I think that's, and like we said, sort of stealing a phrase from Minimuck, is team dependent. It's rank dependent. You're in a position now where, you know, what do you stand to lose from going, say, you know, from swinging for the fences here? You're sort of right on the cusp of hat territory. You have a bit of a swing, and if you end up finishing 500th, then, you know, so be it. Yeah,
you had to go. So I think those guys are all great options this week. And then the other 2 guys in the forward line, I think I would have them further behind some of these guys. They're less sure of things. I've got Luke Jackson ahead of Sam Flanders.
Yeah.
I just really like the matchup coming up later on. Basically, the rest of the year, he's got great matchups for the next several weeks. He comes up against Soldo, I think, the week after, and has Sydney this week as well. I hope I've got that. Maybe I'm confusing Gorn with that. But I know he's got a good few matchups coming up. So I think that he's someone that could score in line with that F6, which is a tricky position at the moment.
Definitely is.
But Sam Flanders, there's a world where he scores 90 plus from now to the rest of the season, but I'm less confident.
Can I, again, selfishly run my kind of spicy little situation by you and by some of the people in the comments as well?
This is spicy.
So what I'm considering doing this week is Laird down to LDU in the midfield.
Yep.
And then I've actually still got Sheldrick because I haven't been able to move him. I can use the money from Laird to LDU to take Sheldrick to a Flanders.
Yes.
And that actually becomes sort of a 23rd option that I can have a go at looping. If Caleb Daniels scores poorly tonight, I could bring Flanders into my forward line as like the potential backup. And then if Caleb Daniels actually goes right, I could move Flanders up into the midfield and I could actually have another look at Callum Mills. So how do you feel about that whole situation where you start to bring in like a 23rd viable kind of guy?
This has been thrown up a few different places and I don't mind it. I think in an ideal scenario, if you're looking for a 23rd premium, you've ticked all the boxes of...
We're using premium loosely here.
Yeah, like he's better than a rookie.
Yeah.
Let's give him that. And there is a world where he's sort of like around that F6 mark. But in an ideal world, you tick off all the big ticket items in terms of you've got all the big 4 forwards. You've got Errol, you've got Taranto, you've got Connor Rosie, you've probably got Cogs, ideally. You've got Bont, Merritt, Brayshaw, all these kind of guys that you must have, Dawson, Dacos. You've got all those guys. And then those guys that are a bit more questionable, on any given week they could outscore each other. Doing that loop situation could be a way for you to sort of get ahead. So I like it in that scenario. Or I think in your scenario, I think you were saying that you can't actually get to any of those guys this week. So.
So even if a Laird down to LDU doesn't give me enough cash to take like Himmelberg to, I think the highest person I could get to with Himmelberg might be like a Walsh or something like that.
Or something
maybe?
like that.
Yeah, somewhere in that bracket. And I'm just like, doesn't fill me full of confidence. So then I thought, okay, well, maybe there's this option to do something spicy. Minimuck seems to be suggesting that he might be doing something sort of down a similar line. The only thing that it sort of pisses me off a little bit is it does still mean that Himmelberg's still running around, with the Oxlongs, and I still don't have Sicily, I still don't have Doc, but the Bullets have kind of dictated that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably not a move that maybe you'd planned out to do at the start of the week,
Yeah.
but I think that it's a very intriguing play, and I think there is definitely where it works out. I'm interested. I want you to do it just so I can watch it and
see what happens.
See what happens.
See if I manage to fuck up the loops.
And just have a crack, and it could be a good bit of learning for next year and something to sort of discover: is this a viable play or not?
Yeah,
But,
that's true.
Yeah, so
That's true. I'll be the case study.
Yeah,
from where
be
I'm
the
ranked,
case
it doesn't
study.
matter. So
I like the move. Though.
Should we have a bit of a look at the teams? I can see some people in the comments are.
Yes. Is Max Gawn rucking solo or is Grundy back in? Looks like he's rucking solo. So,
Okay.
Geez, everyone's stressing me out a bit there. but no, Max Gawn, I think if you don't have English, if you don't have Marshall,
Differentiate yourself.
get him in. I think he
Yeah.
could easily match those guys, if not outperform them the last several weeks of the season.
Any other news there? I think I saw Jack Zeebel's been put on the chopping block.
What's he been doing? Let's just get out of that Melbourne game. Zeebel's being managed again.
So what does that mean for Sheasel? Because there'll be a few people wanting to...
Well, I feel like he's been the sub the last several weeks, hasn't he? So does that mean he's managed as the sub again? The other thing that I should note here is Todd Goldstein is in, which is noteworthy in terms of like a Marshall matchup because they still have... They go in the ex-Airy Goldstein combo.
And they're interestingly restrictive when Goldstein plays, aren't they?
They're more restrictive under Goldstein than they have been in
With
Cherry, but
yeah.
recently they've actually been giving up a lot of points to rucks. So that is an interesting one. We'll talk big boys later.
So what are your thoughts on Sheasel? Is because a lot of people
Faye can't get a game because he's out as the sub again.
Poor bastard,
poor bloke, but they're obviously trying to get into finals.
Yeah.
But nothing else really relevant there. And of course, Windhager, he holds. So
okay. Who didn't? Was it Billings that didn't?
No, I feel like they've done a little sneaky switcheroo here. So Butler, Windhager, Gresham, Clark all make it. Oh, sorry, Billings. Yeah, Billings.
I thought of those names that Billings would be there.
Billings and Stocker. Okay, so Windhager is there. So breathe a sigh of relief if you had him on your field.
Okay.
But that's cool.
Oh, mate, it's our favourite time of the week. You ready?
Yeah, let's actually, no, hold on. Let me get
okay, wait, whoa, righto. You count me in, mate.
Ready, off we go. The big boys.
Get around the big boys. How are the big boys going? Are you still sort of there or thereabouts with the elite captain pickers around the land, or?
I'm the biggest of the boys.
No, actually, fuck off.
Since that whole debate, I actually haven't been keeping track a little bit. So maybe I'll.
He's put the blinkers on. He says, "I don't want to know."
Depending on how I go this week, I'll assess after this weekend. If I go good, I'll assess. If I don't, I'll just forget about it.
If he goes, I reckon he's going to come in wearing a fucking WWE Championship belt if he goes well.
Dun, 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 dun.
This week seems tough. There seems like there's a lot of kind of options that are at a similar level.
Many options. A lot of them were tough to choose. I think I tweeted out earlier, I think I've changed the order of the big boys this week more than any other round this season.
Well, that should fill everyone with great confidence. This guy doesn't even know what he's doing.
The one guy that has stayed in the same position the entire week, though, is my number one. And that is Jordan Dawson.
JD.
Jordan Dawson is my number one. He's my favourite guy to fall back on. Plays on the Sunday, I think one of the last
Melbourne
games.
at the G.
Yeah, 3:20, so very late on the Sunday. So he is my favourite guy to fall back on. He's just been so consistent. No Rory Laird.
Big time game at the G too. Last time he played a big time game at the G, I recall it was Collingwood, and I think he went bananas.
Yeah,
so that sounds good.
He has gone 120 in all but one of his last 7 games, which is just incredible. And it doesn't look like slowing down.
No.
Just fills it up, and I think no Rory Laird. I'm very happy to fall back onto him. The rest of it is where it gets a bit tricky, because I think from 2 down to probably 6 or 7 are pretty tight for me. At number 2 for me, I don't think I've seen much love for this guy and captains out there, but number 2 for me is Sam Doherty for the Carlton Blues, playing against West Coast, potentially with an inside mid role, and with a few of their big names out of this side.
The potentially inside middle, I don't know how much you can hang your hat on that. Like,
but it just, as a VC option, someone who...
But I know you don't like to speculate with your VC. I know you'd like to be solid with both.
This round with so many options that I'm kind of like...
Okay.
I don't mind going a bit of a pod VC option, someone with a bit more ceiling when you can go into a Dawson who plays late in the round.
That could be a unique little perspective there, I think. Dock into Dawson. So,
yeah,
but I mean,
staying the defenders, but Yeah. So that's where I've landed. Sam Doherty number 2 as a decent option, which is why I also hold on him as a trade-in target.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let us know your thoughts in the comment there. So in the comments, so Dawson, Doherty as 1 and 2, and then who rounds out the 5 there?
Number 3 again. Not someone I've seen people talk about a lot. Maybe with this Todd Goldstein thing, I'm not. Maybe rethink it a little bit, but Rowan Marshall, number 3. If I look at the matchups for Ruckman in the last 5, North Melbourne are actually giving up the second most, and 75% of players go over their average with an average of nearly 16 points higher than the average, which just absolutely smashes, a 120 score for a Rowan Marshall.
You do have to put the C on him, however.
You do have to put the C on him, and so that would be, like, you couldn't VC a Dawson and go into a Romar, because the games are only basically an hour or just more than an hour apart. So if you wanted to take on the Jordan Dawson, then Rowan Marshall is probably the guy, because his ceiling and his floor are both very high, but I actually really like him.
I thought we'd be just rolling in options in tonight's game. Where are Bonts and Merritts? What's going on?
Well, we'll get to him. Number 4, I've got Errol Goulden. Now that I'm an Errol Goulden owner, I look on his scoring much more favourably.
He never made this list when you were an owner. What's going on?
Never made it this high, but against Freo, it was one of the teams where he's gone 150 plus against. He's also gone 126 or higher in his last 4 matchups, and his last 5 only as low as 108. And is just playing an insanely high time on ground.
He's the kind of guy that,
stadium,
if you put the VC or the C on him, at least you know when you're watching that he's trying his best to help you out. Even if he's not scoring, you can see he desperately wants it. Yeah. He's the kind of guy that when the ball goes out on the full, he'll run from like 30 metres away to be the guy who takes the kick. Like he's a fantasy guy.
Talking about like Steele only having 30 touches once this season, like this guy gets 30 touches nearly every week. So he is at number 4 for me. Again, a great VC option with high ceiling. Good form recently as well. Good matchup, good ground. Okay. And number 5 is the first guy that's playing tonight in Marcus Bontempelli.
Yep.
Is just an incredible player.
Such a high floor.
Some people have flagged a potential tag. I know you hate talking about tags. Potential tag coming from... who was the guy that was going to go to him? Perkins, Archie Perkins, potentially running with him. I think Selby, the great man.
Potential tags why I don't already own LDU and have fucking 140 on the board.
It's a VC, so you can have a throw and obviously, do it there. But I don't know. Like the good thing about Bond is his high floor. Yes. He's had a few ceiling games. He's pumped out, I think, 3 or 4 140 plus games this season. So he's number 5. So he makes my top 5. I just like a few of the other guys a bit higher than him. And then Tim Taranto is the other guy that I really like. Against the Hawks, we saw LDU go crazy against them last week. I think he could do a similar thing. The flag with Tim Taranto is Jacob Hopper. Since being back into the team, I don't know if Taranto is the 120-plus Taranto that he was with Hopper out of the team. He maybe is more of the 110 Taranto.
Taranto played with... Hopper played a sort of extended period at the start.
He's still going to be great. Like, he still makes number 6, but I just...
Maybe the ceiling.
The ceiling just maybe a little bit down.
Okay.
Just a little flag there.
Yeah.
I'm not too worried about the tag because I think they've been taking outside guys as opposed to inside guys.
Okay.
So I actually think the tag might go to a Rioli this week. Yeah. Who do you think it'll go to? Is it Shea? I'd put money on the fact that they go to Rioli.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to tag someone like Shea, because if you put a tag on Shea, Shea's just going to go stand in the forward line, and then it's just a defender. Like it's not a tag. It's not a tag. It's just a defender.
You're just playing defense on the guy.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe really.
A few other guys I'll run through to round out the list. I've got Max Gawn at number 7 up against Adelaide. He could absolutely crush it again as that sole ruck. Tim English at number 8. Again, talking about Essendon being actually restrictive for rucks despite their poor ruck stocks. Zach Merritt at number 9. I just think... Look, he could be higher. I could definitely see the argument for it. I think the Bulldogs do just restrict players and disposals a lot. Last week, Errol Goulden was the only one that had more, I think, than 25 touches, and they've been doing that for most weeks. So Merritt's been good, but I think ceiling might not be there against a team like the Dogs. And then Nick Dacos. I wanted to put him higher, but in a big game,
he's a beast.
But Port Adelaide are still very restrictive. As good as he was last time, he didn't score over 120, so...
I think tonight is going to be such an interesting watch, because I think there's people out there who like to throw the VC out on the first game of the week. But the other thing too is I look at some of the names playing tonight, and it it's hard for me to see that at least one of those guys doesn't go like a 130. There's the names that are there. So it'd just be interesting to see which of those guys pops, if any.
For sure. Look, and I will say, I think this is a very close round. I think a lot of these guys, like I said, I've shifted the order of these guys around a lot. So if you want to back your own gut in, I would 100% encourage you to do that this round. And if you wanted to take a pod VC this round, I think it is the round that you could potentially do that if you wanted to maybe, do something a bit unique and work your way up.
That's like a little disclaimer, a little fine print on the end of the big boys.
Little out clause, so, yes.
Very nice. Should we perhaps talk some
spicy takes?
Let's do it. Spicy takes for a spicy weekend.
Spicy takes. Now, I'm coming off a successful spicy take last week.
Remind us.
Yes, I said that Sicily would go, I think, what did I say, under 80?
Yeah.
And he would ruin the weekend for all those that, ruin their teams to get him in. So
yeah, that was good. That's the first spicy take that you've genuinely got to, and you haven't had to just tweak the rules to give yourself.
I'm on a roll. So this one's definitely happening. So I'm using my hot form to turn this into an optimistic take for my team specifically. Very selfish spicy take for me.
Love the positivity, mate.
Jack McRae moves into the midfield and goes 120 plus this week on the back of the Dogs performing poorly. And Bevo just moves those magnets around, and we see Jack McRae back in the mids.
I don't want to get on board your spicy take because I suspect that the person who might suffer would be Caleb Daniel. But we
see a little helmet.
We
get out of there.
Mentioned, just before we jumped on, that Bevo came out and quite publicly, is my understanding, backed Bailey Smith this week, and I even saw a tweet that it was quite an emotional backing. He was very much
Bevo could do that. He's good at that.
So if you come out and you back a guy like Bailey Smith, who's coming off probably one of the worst games of his career, are you just going to go, Bailey, just in the midfield this week? Or are you going to go, I'm going to fuck you again? And
maybe he's pumping him up because he's then, after that presser, gone to Bailey, you're playing in the forward pocket again.
He's he's pumped him up so he can deflate him.
Exactly. Maybe that's why he's pumping him up, because he knows he's going to give him a shit roll this week. I don't know, but who fucking knows with Bevo? He doesn't know. He probably is going to figure it out 20 minutes before the game. So,
just flipping a coin.
But yeah, Jack McRae, 120. Let's go.
Now, my spicy take this week, it actually is not something that we'll be able to assess after the weekend of football. We're actually going to have to wait.
Convenient.
We're going to have to we're going to have to wait till next week. But my spicy take is that come Monday morning, every team in the AFL will have a fully detailed injury report list that will have extended blurbs on the players and their injuries, because I'm a glass half full guy, and I think that the AFL is going to help us fantasy coaches out.
We're going to turn a corner, and we're not going to have shady coaches in the AFL.
It's probably
anymore.
An optimistic take as well.
That's very spicy, in my
opinion.
opinion.
You seen that some clubs are getting their strength and conditioning guy or their injury person, whoever it is, to do a video each week? Have you seen some of those?
I have seen that, actually, yeah. And I some
respect
can be
that.
Informative.
That's good stuff. They do a video this player's tracking this way, this is the injury. This I like that. So
you're actually getting the person that knows what they're talking about, not the coach who's just I don't know.
Yeah, stiff groin.
Yeah.
He's got a stiff groin.
Yeah.
He's sustained on Saturday evening after the game.
Yeah, in the clubs. All right, let's maybe answer some of these good people's questions. If you've got some questions, guys, or a spicy take you want to throw into the comment section over on YouTube, do so now. We'll scroll up and answer some of the questions in there as we go along. So, what have we got, Luke? We got some good questions here.
Let's have a little bit of a look.
Stewart to Sicily or Keys to Cogs is an interesting one. What do you think about Keys this week with Laird out? Is that enough for you to...
I think it doesn't really change my perspective because Keys had the role last week. So he had the second highest CBAs.
It was definitely more of a defensive role, though.
Does it
ball first role?
Probably give me a little bit more confidence? Yes, it does. Is it enough to make him a genuine trade-in target?
I think with these two, Stewart to Sicily, Keys to Cogs, I'd still probably lock in Cogs, and because Sicily's just got a few flags.
Yeah.
Stewart's probably more safer than a Keys.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're getting a guy that you're we're pretty confident that he's going to be a top 6 defender.
The Stewart to Sicily is a very unique play, though, because Stewart's very highly owned.
Yeah. So I don't mind that. This one from Aaron. Kelly, LDU, or Walsh. Very interesting options there. I think
He does mention that he likes the pain.
Yeah. Those are guys that are on a lot of people's never again lists, I think.
Yeah. I actually had a look at Walsh this week.
He's a guy I could afford.
Carlton's run is actually very friendly. I must say, because they've got West Coast obviously this week.
No Cripps, no Chera.
No Cripps, no Chera. The reason Walsh has been scoring, we've talked about his handball to kick ratio.
Yeah.
He's not tackling as good as we want him to.
Yeah.
He's collecting a lot of the ball. His time on ground has also been weirdly down as a guy who's, typically admired for his fitness. But he's got West Coast, Collingwood, St Kilda. So 3 really good matchup in his next 3. His average versus those opponents are pretty good as well. So I don't mind it. I still would go LDU though.
I think, he's a little cheaper than LDU, but he's mid only, and I think you're trading in a guy that you're not even close to the top 8 mids the way we're looking at it at the moment.
Yeah.
If he was a forward, then I'd probably consider it as a bit of an option, but not so much. I think that one, LDU of those 3 options. One that we...
Well, we answer Longy's question here. What's he doing with Green and Laird? What are you doing if you've got 2 of those injured guys still?
Well, I think that's one of those ones where it sucks, but it's also, you've got 2 guys with a fair bit of money on their head. You can pretty much do as you please. Do you know what I mean? So I'd be looking to go, if I don't have LDU, I guess you could make some cash off one of them. But then the thing
go
is,
Green to LDU and then...
But then you don't
Laird
really...
to a Parish or something like that.
Yeah,
you might even be able to afford a Bont if you had a bit of cash in the bank still there.
Yeah, if you didn't have him.
Yeah.
I think that's the option. Would you do that? So you'd go down to LDU regardless. You wouldn't just kind of like sideways both of those guys to Uber premiums in their own right. You would generate the cash and then go to a Uber premium.
Depends on who you got. You could have a look at the big boys there and sort of just go down the list and see who's going to score the most this round.
Shameless plug.
And go that way. But those cheap guys are cheap, so sometimes we automatically default to they're cheap, so they're not going to score as well. But they could easily match those guys, and I think a lot of them have good matchups this week. So just because they're cheap doesn't mean they're not going to be the best scorers.
Yeah.
Not
a bad question here from Josh. He says, "Is Windhager an option to field this week?" Okay, we know that he's now in the team over a guy like Harry Himmelberg, and I think I saw somebody commented before that who's GWS's big forward option that is out this week. Just check the teams
Hogan,
again.
Yeah,
Hogan. And so what does that mean for Himmelberg?
Are we worried about him moving forward?
I don't necessarily think he'll move forward. That's my thinking on it. But, isolate that question. Would you be looking to field Windhager over Himmelberg? Is there a looping scenario in that?
Let me have a look at how Gold Coast have been for defenders in terms of matchups recently. So they've been very average. So very neutral kind of matchup there. I potentially would do that. I think that the North Melbourne matchup is a good one for Windhager.
Yeah.
And you've also got the fact that he's going to be going up in price, making next week's trade a lot easier. And so when you've got a 50-50 choice, I think take the cash, make next week's trade a bit easier. I wonder if the trade-in target is different. Like if you can get a better player with someone like Himmelberg, then I would probably definitely.
But he's not looking as a trade target, is he? He's just looking at it as like fielding. Who's he going to field? Yeah, because this is the thing: is could you even loop Himmelberg if you had a Drury or someone?
Yeah, if you had a Drury, you could definitely loop.
You might be able to loop and have a look.
If you don't, then you might have to make that choice. But
yeah, I think I'd go the Berg. But if you had a looping option, definitely explore that.
Yeah, to field, I'd probably still just back in the Berg.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom of the comments. So if you have any questions, keep them coming in now because we're just going to be working from the most recent comments down here. Getting Doherty this week for sure. Should I go 1 down and 1 up to get him? So Johnson and Wilmot, or should I just sideways from Laird? If you have the option to go 1 up, 1 down to get the premium you want, and you can hold a guy that you think will be back next week,
I think if you still got a rookie on field, there is still a play. I think you do hold Laird.
Is he guaranteed?
Those rookies off field, man.
It's not guaranteed that he'll be back next week.
No, it's not guaranteed. I think he's like, if you're choosing between like an injured player, I'd trade out Green more first before Laird. I think I'm optimistic he's back next week. It's a risky play for that reason, but you've got to get the rookies off field.
Yeah.
Like in upgrade season, we would have said, if this was upgrade season,
1 up, 1 down.
you'd be holding Laird. So for this team, you're technically still in upgrade season because you've still got rookies on your field. So you've got to get that completed team. So in that situation, you could potentially hold a Laird and make that upgrade if the end result player is the same.
Yeah.
So
I think it's worthwhile. Briggs to English and play Windhager, or trade Laird and buy a shiny new toy from Mitchell. I think I'd go Briggs up to English. You're getting English in. You know you're going to want
Briggs
English,
to
or Briggs to Gawn.
Save $200K and you've got way more money to spend.
Yeah, and I guess it depends. Would it depend where you're ranked for Mitchell here?
Nah.
You're just going to
Just go Gawn.
Yeah, I mean...
Be different. Like Gawn.
But that move falls flat on its face the minute Grundy comes back in.
When is Grundy coming back in?
Well, if I was Melbourne, not this year.
Yeah.
But...
Probably not the next 2 rounds, I would have thought. The way that they've sort of worded it, I don't think he's there the next 2 rounds. And then after that, you could just trade him out anyway.
Yeah.
Like, and just do a little shuffle around. It's luxury trading season, so...
Yeah. I think you would, regardless, go with the Briggs up and then Felix Windhager, and then you can hold that in that particular situation.
Explore Max Gawn.
Yep. Trelaw, worth a look. The soft tissue stuff gets me. I couldn't do that, Jared.
I don't have faith in Trelaw. I know people have been talking about him as an option, and he does have a lot of good scores on the board.
Yeah. There's with Trelaw, it's like trade him in. He could be an absolute jet pick for you, but there's always that but of the soft tissue, and you'd be kicking yourself if you traded in a guy.
It's not exactly cheap when you can get Trelaw in or save 40K and get a Touk Miller.
Yeah.
I'm going Touk every day of the week.
Okay, speaking of Touk, Dan wants us to rate in order LDU, Steele, and Touk. We talked about him before, but give us a definitive order.
LDU 1.
Yeah.
Touk 2.
Yeah.
Steele 3.
Okay. And does price factor into that at all, or is that just pure what you think?
In terms of like what they're going to average, I think it's the same.
Yeah, okay.
I'd actually back the same order in for price and just who's going to score the most.
LDU has a great run too.
Now, they're all extremely close. Like, this is just my take. Like, I could very well be wrong. Just so I make sure the disclaimer's
We've been
out
wrong
there.
many times this year.
That's what you asked my opinion. That's my opinion. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Hey, man, that's all we're doing on here is giving everything. People think we're talking facts. We don't know our ass from our elbow.
Actually, hold on. I'll take it back. Lock it in. That's actually, I'm from the future. I've seen it. Yeah, it's that's what's happening.
Mitch doesn't know shit from shoe polish. Bailey Scott, have you seen what Bailey Scott's been doing?
Yeah, I have. I'm
still going
I'm still
going LDU for that particular question. But Bailey Scott, if you could get on
your hat to
10
anyone
weeks
who
ago,
went with him 5 or 6 weeks ago, but. No, I couldn't go there.
Well done. 150 odd people listening to us two mugs chat fantasies.
Oh.
Pretty nice. Thank you very much for people.
Where would you rather be on a Friday afternoon, really?
We don't even have beers to celebrate with 150 people, but we appreciate you guys tuning in, giving up your time.
Let's maybe do 2 more, and then we'll sign off and let everyone go over and
Let's do it.
make their trades.
Let's go here. What do I do with Laird, Hobbs, or Briggs from Virgil? So I'm assuming he's got all those players and he's just making the choice of whether to move them on.
I think I've answered a couple of questions similar to this week, and I'm actually of the opinion that depending on your forward line and if Hobbs is your F6, because there's so many unsure people in the F6 position, I actually like getting rid of Briggs and Laird and bringing in a Gawn and another elite premium midfielder option. You know, maybe putting the emergency on a Hobbs this week. Hopefully, if you've got a Windhager or something like that, if he scores shit, you can go into a Windhager and do that this week.
So you'd basically go Laird to LDU and then Briggs to Gawn is what you do in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, or if you don't have like an Uber premium or something like that, then you can maybe chase that and get instant points.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that's where I'd go because of the uncertainty of the best options in F6. Whereas next week you could maybe more confidently go a Hobbs to Dunkley.
Yeah.
If you bank a bit of cash or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Sarong or LDU? From Mark?
Sarong I like. I really like Sarong. I think that he has displayed a very high floor. I think, again, it comes down to the fixture for me. So he's got Sydney, Geelong, Brisbane over his next 3. He then has the West Coast matchup, but then immediately after he has Port. So 4 out of his next 5 games are actually quite tough in terms of points for mids. So that's just the tiebreaker for me, going LDU, plus you save another 170K, and what you can do with that either this week or next week, to me, is still definitely worth considering.
Okay, last question here. We'll go with Bram. LDU and Sheasel, or Steele and Jackson, or Parish and Flanders, or sort of a mixture? We're looking for a mid and forward.
We haven't talked about Sheasel much. What are your thoughts, just before we answer this specific question? What are your thoughts on Sheasel as a trade-in target?
I don't know whether it's like a mental barrier for me to have traded out a rookie and then to trade one back in. But I can see a scenario where it doesn't work, where it works out to be an okay move.
I think so.
I don't.
He's got Saints this week, and as a defender, that's the best matchup in the game. So.
Yeah, my gut says to me that he's not going to go massive ceilings kind of anymore. I feel like he's going to be sort of between that side 90 and 105 kind of mark. That's just my feeling on it.
He was on track for a 130 last week until you got clamped in that third quarter.
Yeah, look, I don't know. Like I said, I think I've got that mental block.
Yeah.
So I'm not the person to talk.
There's risks there with Sheasel, just the fact that we have seen, even in the last couple of weeks, that his game to game, quarter to quarter, his role can fluctuate. You know, they're in experimentation mode over at North. So that's the risk there. I would say I'm a little bit higher on his ceiling than maybe you are, but there is definitely risk. So in terms of these options, LDU, Sheasel, Steele, Jackson, as in Luke Jackson, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Parish and Flanders.
I'd go LDU and Jackson, I think. But Parish and Flanders, it's probably not going to be like a loopable option there.
I think I'm going to rule out Steele and Jackson.
What about LDU and Jackson? Just go balls deep on Jackson. Just go have a crack. He could average 105 if he's a solid.
The Sheasel thing is making it more tempting for LDU.
You're not trading two North Melbourne players.
I think I'm actually going Parish Flanders of these options.
Okay.
Oh, then that contradicts. Oh, I don't know. That's really hard.
Look.
You got there. I'd rule out Steele and Jackson, and depending on your, your feelings on Sheasel, if you're really, high on Sheasel, then back that option in. Really high on Flanders. I'd probably back in Sheasel over Flanders, so I've changed my mind. LDU and Sheasel.
So we're none the wiser.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I know we didn't get around to answering everyone's questions, but we do appreciate everyone listening in. We've gone for over an hour now, so we want to give you guys a chance to go and have a play with your teams. Thanks to Scott there, who had some kind words in the comments section. There's
thank you, Scott.
A lot of really great fantasy content out there, so we're glad that you guys are enjoying.
Guys, after this podcast, after you've joined us live, head over to the AFL Fantasy Fanatics and join their live Twitter space, and make sure you heckle the shit out of Tim Guest and let him know that the ball boys are coming for him. Mitch has got his number, and just let him know. He's
going to cancel your Infinite Wealth account. He's going to get booted out. Go on.
Thank you again, guys, and subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video, and we'll see you guys next time. Good luck this round. Bye.